everybody seems to be someplace big and popular, but you're down there in the South where nobody wants to be.
I've never lived in a popular place.
That's terrible. You should at least go once just so you won't want to go back again.
Yeah, I don't like. I remember when all the cartoonists were moving to New York City. I was like, I don't want to. I don't want to like have to compete with all the cartoonists that live in New York City. You know.
Then you get that attitude and everything. I was just talking to Austin. Was it Austin? Yeah, Austin English.
Yeah.
He's telling me that people are moving all out of Manhattan, and it's just like a ghost town almost. It's just like all these buildings are empty and stuff. But there's still all the people in Brooklyn, which, again, I can't understand how anybody affords that.
I don't know. Maybe the rents will go down though if everybody's moving out.
Well, we can only hope. You know. I don't think that the rich aren't exactly like well known for lowering their prices.
That's true.
They should.
Yeah.
They should.
It's that whole thing about how they would raise the gas prices a lot, and then they wouldn't bring it down all the way to what it used to be. They just bring it down a little bit so that you feel like you're saving money, but it's like that's how they get you, like incrementally,
Man, people will not believe that in, what was it, August of 2001, I could like fill my tank for $20. And yeah, and then like September 12th, 2001, it was 2001, not 2001, the gas was like what, like $2 a gallon?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
The day before it was $1.05 at the cheap gas station. The next day it's $2, and then like the next month it's $2.50.
Yeah. Hey, let me warn you, because it's we're in like another southern like thunderstorm. It's really fucking crazy around here. But sometimes my internet goes out around this time of day. So if I drop out, I'll just call you right back. Okay, I just got to reset my modem, and that happens sometimes. It's annoying.
I will be here. So you have questions?
Yeah. So I don't want to waste a lot of your time, but yeah. So
plenty of time. I'm retired.
You're retired?
Yeah, my job is sitting at home and taking like popping pills and writing poetry and watching, like, I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched was on, and I was watching that. I love those old shows, but then Facts of Life came on, had to get rid of it.
Yeah. Well, reading Purgatory, I was like, I related so much with that, like your childhood stories, because I had the same kind of shit. I mean, the difference obviously is that I'm a white kid, but I was one of the biggest losers in my school. I went to I think it was probably mostly like Hispanic. My teen years were spent in Arizona, so it was like all crazy. It's just crazy, like bullying and all that stuff. So I like really related with that a lot.
Did you go to college after?
No, I didn't. I never went to college.
It's funny because the people that are like considered to be the nerds in high school, not the ones that have like the Asperger's, but the ones that are the creatives, those people that get picked on in high school for being nerds are the ones in college that everybody wants to know. That it's like when I went to college, I was just the coolest. Man, you're the coolest dude I ever seen in my life. But it doesn't work that way when you're in high school. Everybody wants to be older.
Yeah. It was like terrible. It was like terrifying time. I hated that. Like my teens and stuff. Like I don't romanticize that at all. I never draw comics about school really, because it was just like, ugh. Like it was just a nightmare, I mean, I had to figure out a way to make it funny. Like the closest I got to that was I did this comic called My Hot Date. But like even that, I chose to draw the summertime when we weren't in school because that was like actually fun,
Well, I don't remember anything fun. That's funny. I don't remember positive memories, even though when they're happening, I try to make this concerted effort to really be in that moment and to like remember the tactile sensations, everything. But God damn it, I cannot remember anything positive.
Wow. Well, I had, what saved me was I had a group of friends who we were skaters. So I had a pretty close group of like loser friends that saved my life, because all of us getting beat up. But we all just summertime, we just spend it basically out the entire day outside skating around, looking for places to skate, pushing each other in shopping carts.
That sounds like fun. I remember, see, back then, my grandparents lived in an all-white suburb, and the summers I would spend, I think, from age 7 to maybe 13 or maybe 14, I'd spend all my time out there. And I remember there was a kid next door. His name was Ben, and we were like brothers. Every summer, we were like brothers. Mm-hmm. And then when puberty hit, age 12, 13, he slowly stopped wanting to be friends,
mm-hmm.
The girl thing, there's only white chicks out there. And now he's like the biggest racist in the world.
Oh, really? Wow.
I can imagine what happened. I can imagine that he was, he had to go to school out there and everything, and people were probably giving a bunch of shit. Oh, he's the nigger lover. I remember, I can imagine that.
Yeah.
But to me, that would seem counterproductive, because why aren't you mad at the white kids that were making fun of you? Why are you mad at the black dude that they were making fun of you for being friends with, instead of being mad at people that were making fun of
you? Yeah. Right. Where was that? In Chicago? Or around Illinois?
Illinois. It was just south of Chicago.
Okay. It was an all-white suburb?
Yep. It was I think there was, when I was little, maybe two black families. That was it. In the whole city. Yeah.
Damn. And what kind of what was your escapism? What were you into?
Well, that was the weird thing, is in Homewood, it was just living life. Me and Ben would go out, and there'd be some other kids, and we'd ride our bikes and go down to the creek and all that stuff, and just do kid shit. But and it was amazing, because to go from that to go back to Chicago on the south side, it's completely different environment.
Mm.
So, to go from all this green and safety, we're out till 1 a.m, they're going back to concrete and gray dirt lockdown. It's amazing. It was, but I'm glad I had the experience.
But did you read comic books or anything?
Oh yeah, not during the summer.
Yeah.
But, when I was at home, yeah, comic books, Bill Sienkiewicz stuff for the New Mutants, and what else? Harvey Pekar stuff, underground comics, Crazy Magazine. Love Crazy Magazine, those last issues. What else? TV, All My Children.
Mm-hmm.
I had to watch that for 20 years every day. I think I flunked out a lot of classes in college because I was, busy watching All My Children on my little TV. Paying attention to the teacher in class.
Yeah, yeah.
And then after the show, I'd go to sleep, in the class. I was a funny person.
Well, this really interesting. There's that part in Purgatory where you're in class, but you would hide a headphone in your jacket and then just listen to the radio.
I did that at work too. For many years, I always worked these jobs that were what they would call semi-skilled labor. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, they just did not want you to have a good time at all. So, the one thing that would have kept you sane was listening to music, but no headphones, no music or anything. So I did that trick. I grew my hair long, and then I would run the headphone up behind my ear. And, put it here, and it'd be under my hair. Nobody could tell. And And so yeah, I did that for years and years. And then like um, I remember when Bluetooth came out, I would put the Bluetooth thing and just run the MP3s to the Bluetooth.
Oh, well, what were you doing weren't you a janitor or something?
And I did everything. I was a janitor for the last 10 years.
Hmm.
And it's funny because you're the Bukowski guy, but
Hmm.
my life has had all these parallels to Charles Bukowski's life, starting with his childhood,
Hmm.
high school, and then it gets out into the real world. And it's just a string of jobs. Let's see. First, the first job I got out of college was I was a dog catcher. And then I was unemployed for a while, about a year. And during that time, it was uh, cold calling people on like telemarketing things. I was an actor for a little while.
Hmm.
Um, I had a little money coming in from the early Tad Mart comic books, just odds and ends. I worked in a warehouse. I was a substitute teacher on the south side of Chicago
Yeah.
and in public schools. Um, Worked at Motorola in the clean room. Worked at Nissan on the assembly line. Uh, Security guard. And in the last 10 years, when I was 40, just like Bukowski, I started working this secure gig at the university. He was a post officer at the university.
Mm.
And then at the age of 50, like Bukowski, I managed to retire on like a small sum.
Yeah.
So now I'm waiting for my fame to come like his did, you know?
Yeah, because it's interesting. When I was looking at like your basically the timeline of your career, it seems like you were putting out stuff like in the 80s and 90s, I guess, and then you just disappeared for like 20 years. And then now you're putting out so much work that I'm like, wonder what happened all of a sudden to just like a big burst of creativity after all
Well,
that time.
what happened, well, what shut me down was two things. One was the implosion of the comic book scene. So the independent weren't really picking people up like they had been before.
Hmm.
So um, Fantagraphics would have been a lifeboat, but that's the other thing that happened. Um, it was at the '92 Dallas Comic Book Convention. I got insulted by Gary Graw on on the roof on the rooftop of the Omni Hotel at the comic book convention. And after that, like I didn't send anything into Fantagraphics.
What did he do to insult you?
I remember he was drunk and we were on the rooftop. There was a pool on the roof, and I was like looking up at the blue sky, and I was like all happy. And I was just talking to him. I said, "Man, it's a nice day out here, you know." And across the pool, he's like, "What are you so happy about?" I said, "Oh, nothing. You know, it's just nice out. It's really, really a pleasant day. I feel good." And he said, "How'd your book sell?" I
Mhm.
said, "Oh, 2,000 copies." He said, "Shit, if I heard that, I'd be depressed."
Ah,
And yeah, and so like I got like real pissed off and I took off and there was some other shit that happened. But yeah, I didn't send anything into Fantagraphics, and because of that, I I had like one small publisher that screwed me over in um, '95.
was
So
that
after that,
Caliber?
huh?
Was that Caliber that screwed you over?
No, it was this guy Shane Bugbee, and he had a thing called Mike Hunt Comics.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and so after that, I was just like jaded.
Hmm.
But I kept drawing because every terrible job I had, I would keep a notebook. Even at Motorola, I would draw in a clean room notebook in ballpoint pen. I'd freehand all these comics. So I kept drawing comics, but they weren't proper full-size comics. They were on-the-fly comics, and
Hmm.
I would draw in like these 2 minute stretches I'd get when because there was all these alarms and shit going off at Motorola to tell you like when shit was, oh, got to get the wafers out of this and start this process over here and this, and then while I'm doing that, I'm thinking about like the panel that I'm gonna like draw when I'm done. And then like when that was done, 2 minutes I draw the panel, and then I hear another buzzer, and I go, and I did that for 3 years, and then the next job, and then the security guard job, and then like I think 2011, there was a small press thing here, and Tim Goodyear, who had been putting out some mini comics for me, came with Dylan Williams, and Dylan really liked the Tad Martin stuff, so he was wondering where that went. And I'd been getting these like emails from people from Europe and Australia that were, where'd it go, man? We love that stuff. And I was like, huh. And so like, I think we were out at like what restaurant was it? It was some Ethiopian restaurant, and I was drinking spiced tea, and Dylan Williams and who else was there? Chris Sia and Tim Goodyear were sitting around the table, and I like made this announcement that, okay, I'm drawing a new issue of Tad Martin. And they were like, oh yeah, whatever. And then like, so I got like a guest check, and I like drew the first panel on the guest check. And that's the first panel of Tad Martin 6. And so that, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, Dylan was a great guy, man. I'm not surprised that he was a big fan of Tad Martin.
Yeah, he had like an eye open for stuff, that everybody else was. I think everybody else gets kind of caught up in this weird. It's like fanboyism that even these artists get. Because like the kayfabe guys, they said something about having me on. A couple of times they mentioned it on air, and it sounds like, okay, cool. So I'd been talking to them on social media and stuff. And then I noticed that between that time and now, they started putting on all these like mainstream, like rich guys, like like Liefeld. And I was like, what's going on with that,
Well, they might mix it up, but I mean, I would have those guys on too, because you get like, that's where you get like the views and the channel growth and stuff like that. But I just don't. I'm like old school Fantagraphics, like indie comics guy. I don't have those guys are so knowledgeable about mainstream comics and stuff, and I'm sure they'll have you on eventually.
That's the thing is like, but guys like what's his name, Todd McFarlane, they're already rich. They don't need a bump.
Yeah, that's true.
Guys like Whisker, and Rug, they know what it's like to do the independent thing. So I figured that they would want to like, help out those where they came from, instead of trying to give themselves more of a leg up.
Yeah.
But see, that's why I'm not successful, because I think that way. I don't promote myself. I don't do all those things that artists are supposed to do. So,
right. Well, your work is hard to get, man. I remember I saw one on the internet that was called like Negronomicon or something like that. What is that?
Yeah, man. That's the 220 pages, 260 pages worth of stuff that I drew in those notebooks over those years. And I actually sent all that stuff to Fantagraphics, and Gary Groth published the first 90 pages worth in the Wilderness.
Oh, okay. So that's what that. Okay, I was kind of wondering about that. Like, yeah. So wait a second. How did that change from Gary's insult to you in the 90s to you coming back around and working with Gary at Fantagraphics?
Tim Goodyear and Jason T. Miles had put out Tad Martin #6, and Jason T. Miles was working at Fantagraphics in 2015 when the book came out. So he was like, say, here, look at this. They're like the guys that were working there. So that's how that happened.
Did Gary remember you?
No. a
Well,
off the cuff statement, he made and stuff. And he was like, "Oh man, I don't remember. I'm sorry." And I said, it's like you're like the Joker, and I'm like Batman, and you're the one that created this. I could have been like one of those guys, like could have been a Dan Clowes, but then again, um, I I'm glad that didn't happen because when you don't have experiences in real life, it shows in your writing.
hmm,
And I think that's the biggest problem with independent comics now is there's no edge to any of it. It's like, well, yours does. You have like some pathos,
hmm,
along with the comedy, but most of the stuff is just feel good kind of stuff that's either concerned with the art, or it's concerned with trying to cram a bunch of different genres in together. Like you see a lot of anime, and then there's a lot of furry stuff, and then there's a lot of vampires. And, you go to any like indie thing, and that's all you see is this like amalgam of like popular culture,
yeah,
and then none of it has any guts because nobody wants to offend anybody.
yeah,
Nobody wants to like be the one that like gets shut down by like the tone police and say, oh well, we shouldn't like um, publish this guy or this, don't read that guy because he said this about this group. But that was the thing that happened recently with Drawn and Quarterly and that one artist. And
yeah,
that the thing is like if you judge artists by their personality, then
hmm,
nobody would fucking buy anything because all artists have like fucked up personalities and they're going to say fucked up things. And if you get to the point where you're not saying fucked up things, then you're no longer an artist.
hmm. Yeah. Well, I agree. I agree with that. I think a lot of people, it's funny. It's like whenever somebody is canceled on Twitter by somebody else, it's like if you look back at the person who started the whole thing, it's like their Twitter, they find a bunch of horrible things they tweeted a few years ago, and then it's like this constant cycle. It's because I don't know. It's like you set up these new standards that like nobody, if they're being honest, could really live up to. I mean, I look at some of the comics I've drawn 10, 12 years ago or whatever, and I'm like, oof. Yeah, that could get me in trouble now.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like if you keep on being true to yourself and keep on like saying what is in your heart, then nobody's going to complain because they say, oh, it's that guy. That's what he does. And if they do say something, just double down on your shit and say, fuck you, man, this is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Like it or not, say, I'm not here to be liked, I'm here to tell the truth. That's how I'm made, that's what I do.
Do you feel like people in the comics industry are scared of you?
Yep, I do. I
Mm-hmm.
do. I think that part of the problem is people are afraid of, well, the comics industry is like, just white people. And so they're afraid of addressing race because for some reason their parents raised them not to talk about race. It's impolite and all this stuff. So they bring that shit into adulthood. So they cancel out anything any artist of color is going to do or have to say because they feel uncomfortable with it. So then you wind up being asked out having to do like bullshit because if you want to like have any of your stuff seen at all. So what I did with Ted Martin is I made him biracial. And I would hint at that, but I never would say it out loud. I'd say it out loud in the mini comics. But in the comics, it wasn't until later that like I actually said anything. And in doing that, I could like get away with saying shit that I couldn't say if they were thinking, oh, this is a black artist. Nobody knew who I was. But if they, but I could say whatever I wanted through Tad Martin because people were like, oh, well, he's like me. He's just a deep thinker. No,
Yeah.
but that's how that happened.
Well, do you think that the racial stuff in comics is getting better now than it was when you were in it
No,
originally? No?
no. What's happened now is you get a lot of like false understanding. Um, you get publishers that want to like publish. Oh, we're going to publish the black artists now. Black Lives Matter. Um, but they're not genuine about that. They're doing it because of business reasons, and they'll go back to. I mean, even consider like how if Marvel decides they want to change like a character to like a white male character to a Hispanic female, people fucking freak out about that. Mad Max Furiosa was one of the best characters in a movie that I've ever seen, but
Yeah.
you saw the backlash with that. So no, this fanboy shit, it was like back then it was that way. Right now it's like that way. And I would explain to people, they said, why you draw your character white? And I would explain it to them. They say, oh, that's not true. And so I'd shut my mouth because I wouldn't be able to convince them. But it's even now it's that way.
Yeah. Do you think Tad Martin was like your character in the 90s, and then you dropped it for 20 years, right? And then when you come back to that character, do you feel like it's still the same character, or is it a different person at this point?
Well, it's the same character because it's me. But but we've changed in that we've had more experiences in life. Like that stuff I sent you earlier, um, that stuff from the mid '80s. That was written by a teenager, so it's not going to have the life experience of somebody that has had like all these heartbreaks and challenges and stuff from the adult world, trying to hold on to just being a teenager. I'm like the world's oldest teenager, and it's fine because I remember during those summers in Homewood, I was living with my grandparents and my extended family, and it was just a lot of old people in the house. And I would sit in this room with these people that were all over 60, 70, 80 years old, and I would watch them, and I would wonder how did they get that way, And I couldn't figure it out. And then I remember, must have been about 10 years old. We were all sitting around watching this Twilight Zone episode called Kick the Can.
Oh yeah, I know that one.
And I was with the people in the retirement home, and there was the one guy with the curiosity and the fire that was like, he said to his friends, how did we get this way? We used to run around and we used to play games, and you know and that was at that moment I realized that most of getting old is like the idea that you have to conform to getting old and all the shit that is entailed in getting old. You have to buy a house, you have to get married, you have to have kids, you have to work a job that you don't like to support the kids, you have to dress a certain way, you have to be mature, and all that shit. And then you get guys like that they turn 50 and they go through their second childhood and it doesn't work because they forgot. But see, I never forgot. I've been 17 since I was 17.
Well, what is your second childhood? What do you mean by what is that?
I never had a second childhood. I'm not done with the first one.
Yeah.
But see, I'm talking about the other guys that have like second childhoods when they turn 50, and they'll buy like a Corvette. They'll get like a young girlfriend in addition to their wife. But see, if you're a child, you don't want another. You can't drive, and you don't have like a wife or girlfriend. You're just doing the shit that When I retired, I started doing the shit that I wanted to do all my life while I was working, which is basically do nothing and be left the fuck alone, and not have to do anything. And then if you want to do something, you do something. Sit around, watch TV, get high, fucking write a story, walk around, walk the dog, do shit like that. That's the stuff that you do if you have a choice.
Yeah.
But see, most people don't have a choice, and then you forget over all those years of working because you're turned into a different person.
Yeah. What I'm curious about that, like with your style, because if you look at the early Tad Martins and you look at your work now, it seems like you've gotten more loose and more expressive and kind of piling on. Like the last issue of Tad Martin, the one that I got from you in Austin, it's really interesting, man, because you're just like piling stuff on. There'll be like paint on the page and shit, and like paste ups and everything. Like, is that just like it just happens of getting bored with the original, like the way you had to work back then?
One thing with Tad Martin is like, I always kept things kind of fluid. Every issue is going to be different,
Mm-hmm.
but I've always kept things kind of fluid. And as I got older, I read Bruce Lee's book on Jeet Kune Do, and I realized that's what I had been doing. Is I'd been taking what I needed to draw this particular page, this particular panel, but I didn't repeat it unless I had to later on. So the book stays fresh. You don't have you don't have a character that looks exactly the same panel to panel. It's going to be a different style, a different tone going from panel to panel. And that keeps things interesting. That keeps things fresh. And you're looking at the page, well, what's going to be next? It's never boring.
Yeah. I love that, by the way. I just noticed this patch you have behind you on the wall is like the same color that you use in your comic. This like orangish, like brown thing. It's like that issue of Tad Martin has like a lot of that color.
I lived in this apartment complex in the 90s, 2 doors down. I lived there for 9 years. And back then I could remember, back then it was drunks living here. And then for about 10 years, it was junkies, speed freaks and stuff. And now, all that's gone. But I remember in the 90s, there were like all these accidents that would happen, some place would get set on fire, or like another place would flood because somebody upstairs would like turn the shower on, or turn the bathtub on, and it would overflow. And that's what happened here. This is a bathroom on the other side of the wall, and like all this was like where the water like went down into the wall. And when I moved in, this was just like all bubbled up work wood, and it looked like shit. And I was like, God, there's probably like cockroaches breeding under there. So I just ripped all the paint off.
Were there cockroaches under there?
No, but there's cockroaches everywhere else.
Yeah. We struggle with that down here in the South too, man. They fly down here.
Well, yeah, we're in the same place. I'm in Austin, man.
Oh,
Yes, they're called blattus. Those are the American cockroaches, the flying cockroaches. They also call them water bugs.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny because we didn't have them in Chicago, and I didn't have roaches in Chicago.
Wow.
And so when I moved to Texas, it scared the shit out of me, And then I was in Lubbock, and they had little roaches, but they were everywhere. Then I get to Austin, and they have all kinds of roaches everywhere. And I remember I had the studio, the first house I lived in here, and at the studio that was in the house, and it was in a closet. And there's no air conditioning. There was like no electricity in the closet. So I ran like it was about like this like 3.5, 4 feet wide. And so I took a 3 feet section of board, and I put hinges on the bottom, and I anchored chains to the wall. So that was my drawing table.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and then like I got a clamp light and ran a cord out, and I would draw in there. And I remember one day I was drawing, and I like was thinking about something. I stopped drawing. I thought, and then I like was looking around. And I looked up at the wall, and there was this fucking cockroach like this big, I like tripped over the chair, running out, and it scared the shit out of me. And yeah, and that was the beginning of like all the horror with like the cockroaches. They would crawl into bed with me. I remember I had like this. I took plastic bags and duct tape, and I sealed up, everything, and they would still somehow they would get in. They must have been coming through the vents in the ceiling, but they would get in, and I would be trying to go to sleep, just fall off to sleep, and then you feel something wrong. Fuck! And you get and you're,
Yeah. So you went down there. You went to Austin because of art school.
I went to Texas Tech, which is in Lubbock, and then I imported a girlfriend from Chicago when I graduated, and she did not like Lubbock, and she couldn't stand it. She didn't want to get into the scene there. She was snooty about the scene, and so it's funny because I was paying $175 rent, all bills paid, for this duplex, big duplex. I was making $8 an hour working for the city of Lubbock, and she wanted to move.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, oh, well, I got this situation here. I definitely get something better somewhere else. So she wanted to move to Denver. And I was thinking, well, I don't know, man. I don't know anything about Denver. I got friends in Austin. Would you like to move to Austin? She said, okay, let's move to Austin. So that's how we wound up in Austin.
In Austin, this was the 90s, right?
Yep.
Different place. That was a hip place to be at the time, right? Wasn't there like a good music scene and everything?
Well, it wasn't just the music scene. It was like, it was just like youth and all these like expressive young people, and everybody was like fucking everybody else. And, you knew, that this girl was this guy's ex-girlfriend, and nobody gave a shit. They had this great punk scene. And that lasted, I got there in 92, and it lasted till about 96. And then in 96, the South by Southwest thing started, and that's when all the trouble started, because you had all these people come to visit, and they were like, oh, I like Austin. It's so cool. Well, then they come, and then everything gets gentrified, and then the creative people can no longer afford to live there.
Mm-hmm.
So by the year 2000, you just had like all these assholes that were living there, these hipster people that were not cool, and they didn't have anything to contribute, but people kept moving in, and they kept moving in. Oh, Austin, it's so great. And I'm like, what the fuck is so great about this place that you're moving here? There's nothing left.
So you're not even like a part of like the comic scene down there anymore, right?
There is no comic scene down here.
Oh,
not
really?
anymore.
Like when I went to that show there last year, there were a lot of cartoonists there.
Yeah, but those weren't Austin people.
Oh,
those
really?
Yeah. I mean, those are people that came in for the show.
Yeah.
There's very few. I tried joining like one of those meetup groups. Actually, it was a couple for comic book people.
Mm-hmm.
And what you had was you had a lot of people that you had a writer, and then you had the guy, oh, I pencil, and then you had this guy, and none of them ever finished anything.
Yeah.
And the whole time that they were like sitting at the table, they were like on their phone or they were talking, and nobody was done.
Yeah.
And that's the exact opposite of the scene that was here when I got here, because I mean, Austin is the birthplace of underground comics, and a lot of people don't understand that, because the guys that started Rip Off Press moved to San Francisco from Austin, and they had been doing stuff here before that. Gilbert Sheldon, Jackson, and Sheridan, those guys were the ones that started all the underground stuff in California.
Well,
and
yeah. Well, I thought, wasn't Chris Ware in Austin, or was he in Dallas?
Who?
Chris Ware, didn't he go to college? I think
Chris Ware was here. He moved away just before I got here. Who else was here?
Alex Ross.
Alex Ross was in Lubbock.
Oh, okay.
I knew him. It's funny because I knew him when he was just graduating from high school,
mm-hmm.
and he drew this book and it had like all these people in the scene included. And I was in there. He didn't really know me, but he still included me. And the only thing I would say was trip. You know, I would just like Steve observing, and then like I'd say trip. And I tried to like contact him, like, you know, but he doesn't answer any contact anything. But
Yeah.
but who else was here? Shannon Wheeler was here. And we all just like hung out at Shannon Wheeler's house and would draw. And I remember like these like 10, 15 people like in his living room, just all crammed in, drawing comic books. A lot of the people went into the animation industry, Tom King and Walt Holcomb. Who else is here? Jeanette Marino. What's his name? Roy Tompkins.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he lived here. He lives here.
Was he the one who told the story about you in an elevator? So after Gary Groth offended you, you got into an elevator with those guys, right? And is that the same time?
Yeah, that's the same day.
So you were in this elevator and you were just angry. You're fuming inside about these, being offended. And then
like after I got off the roof, I was just kind of fuming. And I was sitting there thinking, man, I had to go down and get my gun and come back and shoot his ass. And I said, no, I can't do that. Then I'll go to jail. And then I was on the elevator going down to the room, and I paid attention to these weird things. I was paying attention to how long it took the elevator doors to close. And I like said, okay, that's 8 seconds. And so I didn't like really think about it, but later on, I went back up to the roof because I think it was up there. Shannon Wheeler or somebody was up there. I went back up to the roof and everybody was coming back down. And so I got on this elevator and let's see who was on there. It was like Roy Tompkins there. Gary Groth was on there. Robert Crumb and Aline Kaminsky Crumb.
Klaus.
A couple other people. Yeah, we were all on this elevator, and I remember they were going down to the first floor, and we were on like, it was Shannon Wheeler and me and a bunch of other people were just crammed in one room. And I got off on that floor, and I remembered how long it took the elevator doors to close. So I got off that floor, and I turned around, and then I looked at him, and I said, "You're all gonna die." And then the doors closed right after I said that. And I didn't know what they were thinking in there, but it really freaked them out. I found out later on. And like, so, that was just my way of getting revenge on everybody.
What was the other story that you had like a loaded handgun in somebody's hotel room or something?
Well, you always carried a loaded handgun. It was funny. I think that was like one reason that Shannon Wheeler didn't talk to me for years is that we went to the theater and we were watching Mystery Men, I think, which is where I found Casanova Frankenstein's name.
Yeah.
And I think that was at the point where I heard that name, Casanova Frankenstein, Mr. or Captain, whatever the fuck his name was. They were going over like his villains, and his manager said, so and so, and there's no longer any Casanova Frankenstein. And I like said, Casanova. And I stood up in the theater because it was like such a great name. And I stood up and like a fucking pistol like fell and clattered onto the ground. And Shannon Wheeler was like, and he kind of freaked out. And I was like, do you hear that name? To hear it? And I was like, then I sat down and yeah.
Jesus. You got to tell me.
Skinny, my pants didn't fit as well. So, like in my waistband.
He's like, that's not cool, man.
I'm from a different place. I'm from a different world than they are. They don't get it. That's fine.
Yeah. But like when you're the elevator ride, I mean, Dan Clowes knew you already, right? Because he did the famous cover for Tad Martin.
Yeah, that was weird, man. I kind of lost respect for Dan Clowes after that because I remember I walked up to he was living in Hyde Park in Chicago, and he had his address and Lloyd Llewellyn. And so I really liked his art, so I went and I knocked on his door.
Mm-hmm.
And it was his grandmother's house, and he was living on the top floor of this huge fucking like house. And he had this collection of like all this 60s paraphernalia. And I talked to him about comics and stuff, and I asked him how much he would charge me to draw a cover. And Tad Martin as a book wasn't even a thing then.
Yeah.
And so, you know, he gave me a price of like $150, something like that. I said,
Wow.
let's do it, you know. And so he like produces this cover, and I later use it for Tad Martin #3. And then I get this. It was a message from him that he had sent to my publisher that he wanted royalties for the cover work. And I'm like, going, fucking royalties, dude. They're not making any money on this shit. And I paid you for the fucking cover, man. And now you want royalties? Fuck, dude.
Wow.
So, yeah. So then after that, I was just like, I didn't even read Dan Klaus's stuff after that. It was just disappointing.
You continued using his logo on all the books, though, right? Isn't he the one who did the Tad Martin logo?
I fucking paid for it, man. That was part of the cover.
Do you still have the art?
No. After I heard about that, I traded it for something else.
Okay.
Yeah, I just like, I didn't even want the artwork anymore.
It's such a beautiful cover, though, man. It's a great drawing.
It was really well done. You know, it's really well done. And I think that he just got so successful so quickly that he didn't understand. He blew up within like a 2-year period of starting.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, he was living in his grandmother's house. So, you know, art school, free rent, blowing up in comics. So he didn't get like the memo that nobody else's life is like that, you know, and we're not all making a lot of money on this shit. We're not making any money on this shit. So, you know.
Yeah. Hey, what happened to this book that you did for Fantagraphics called Tears of the Leather-Bound Saints? Is that coming out?
That came out. That came out in May, but it came out during the pandemic. So you don't see it. It's out. It's at the shops. Last I could tell, they either sold out or there was something going on where they didn't have the copies. But yeah, it came out, and that's Tad Martin #8. And but Gary Groth, we were talking about it, and said something about subtitling it something different. And he said, well, that's a good idea. Why don't we just title it different? We can put it in Diamond as Tad Martin. I think we said we'd put it in Diamond as Tad Martin #8. So it would, you know, they'll know that it's like an ongoing series. But put it, don't put #8 on the cover. Just, you know, put the title, you know, Tears of the Leather-Bound Saints on the cover. And so yeah, I think that's like my swan song, my farewell. I think I'm retired from drawing comics at this point.
What? What are you talking? That's not true, man. I don't believe that.
I'm done, man. It's like, it's too much. It's no fun anymore. It's no fun to draw because I'm trying so hard to make everything look just right that it's too stressful. And it's also like I've said everything that I wanted to say, and I don't want to just be drawing just to draw for drawing's sake. I always want to have something deeper to say about, because I think that if you're drawing comics and you're drawing superheroes and all that shit, that's fine if that's what you want to do. But if you want to be a real artist, in my opinion, you're gonna want to change society for the better. And since you're drawing comic books, that's what you do. That's what you use towards that end. That's what I've always wanted to do. That's what I've done. And now it's like everything everything that I really wanted to get out is out. Anything after that, I would have to just start drawing for myself again, which is pretty hard because I got kind of you remember Shawshank Redemption, and there was this I think his name was Jonesy. Was it Jonesy? The one that got out and hung himself.
Yeah.
That's what happened. That's what I was when I stopped working. I got institutionalized by work to draw under pressure in those little notebooks. And when that pressure was no longer there, it was pressure and this anger at having to be in that situation, this anger at these bosses for like just a lot of nonsensical bullshit. And so those comics were like this rage that had to come out. And now that situation no longer exists. And so now I have all this freedom, but I don't have the rage and I don't have the pressure. So it's a miracle that Tad Martin #7 came out, which is the one you got. I just wanted to see, I wanted to prove to myself that I could draw a large scale comic again, full size paper and all that kind of stuff, and I did it, and I said, okay, well that's done. Let's see, do something a little different, and so I did Tears of the Leather-Bound Saints, but that was like pulling teeth. That was just so difficult to like push out, and so after that I was like, fuck this thing. There's other things I can,
But you just felt that it was over. Yeah.
I got plenty of stuff if people want to like find it. There's a whole bunch of shit, and if they want to like buy stuff from Fantagraphics, there's another 2 books worth of stuff that Gary Groff has. That if they like buy the stuff that's out there right now, he'll publish the new stuff. So if people want it, they can find it.
Well, what happened to the Tad Martin collection that you were going to do with Teenage Dinosaur? Did you ever do that?
I published it myself because even the small press publishers now, they want very good digital. They want very good digital scans of everything, and I don't have the original art for most of that stuff. And then what I do have, I gave to my father, and so and it's not in good condition. It's all yellow and a lot of stuff is peeled up. So instead of fucking with that, just what I did was I just scanned all the books and I released it through Lulu.com. So the Tad Martin Omnibus. That's 260 pages. It's hardbound.
Man.
$25.
Wow.
And it contains all the appearances of Tad Martin from the mini comic stuff all the way up and through the 6th issue.
Oh my God, I got to pick that up. I didn't know that was out there, man.
You didn't? I thought, I post all that stuff on social media, but I said, social media there's so much stuff on there that people don't see it.
Yeah.
And I don't pay to have my stuff bumped up. So like paying attention to what I'm doing, you're never going to see it.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right. Hey, man, let's end this because this was a good time. This was a good length of time, and we had a good conversation, I think.
Hopefully everything is. Hopefully I did all right for you, and it was interesting, and the people that watch your channel will say, "Oh, that's pretty interesting. I never thought of it that way. I got to read that guy's stuff. Oh my God, he's a superhero. He's amazing. Oh my God, you got to see this. Oh my God." Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. All right, man. Well, have a good day. Thanks a lot for talking to me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
All right. See you. Bye.